guys still have a voice in this class?
All right, so today we look at ordering and carrying inventory again. So this is basically talking about ordering costs. So what do you got to think about what costs would you have for the things that you need to order?
Shipping,
Okay, shipping's gonna be a big one, right?
or warehouse costs.
Okay, what do you mean by
Workers.
warehouse
Like
costs?
the workers that have to move it, put it on trucks.
Okay,
Gotta pay the trucker or on an airplane.
okay.
Put on an airplane. You gotta pay
However,
that.
it's gonna get on there in the first place.
Storage, transportation. and stuff like
Storage,
Type of packaging.
okay, maybe the packaging, if you're doing, fruit or some kind of food, it could be a way different packaging than a bike.
that. Labor costs.
Labor costs just in general, right? So what labor people do we need in this process?
Riders.
Okay. Do we hire our own drivers?
The person that sends out the stuff.
Okay, so we gotta have like a manager, probably person at the top to.
Transportation company or outsource.
Someone
or
fill the
do it
orders.
yourself.
Right, so do we, going back to the transportation, do we have our own transportation people? Or do we
Outsource.
outsource to that company? What else? Probably need some person, and maybe some of these people have dual jobs, but you'd have to have somebody there to receive it and to make sure that your order is everything that you asked for, right? Or if there's damages or whatever. So a big one of this, when we were like in the restaurant business, we never wanted bad chicken, obviously, right? So if you open the bucket got cracked open before it got there, and then all of a sudden it was sitting outside in a 100-degree truck for a couple days, you probably don't want to serve that chicken.
You should have seen the green peppers that we had the other week, it was last week at Jerry's. Suckers were white, and there were bugs in them when you cut them open.
Really?
They were
Sounds
gnarly.
tasty.
Where'd they come from?
I have no idea, but they're gnarly looking.
Wow.
Can't serve dropped ice cream.
Okay,
Dropped ice cream. Like a drop tub that breaks open. You gotta
so
deeper get holes.
once we get our stock, then you gotta decide how you're going to divvy out that process again. Okay, so do you have one person that's gonna put it all away? Do you have a team that puts it all away, right? So a simple phone call could be considered a part of that process, right? Now, in this day and age, the phone business is a little different, but in some of these companies, you're probably not gonna do everything off of the cell phone. You'd probably have a hard landline. And so you could honestly go through and divvy up each phone call to a particular part of your company, if you really wanted to, right? Now, that's probably a little bit more difficult, but you could still do it if you wanted to. So then creating a purchase order is just simply figuring out what you're going to have and what you need, right? So have to pay your personnel in the purchasing department, the everyday office costs. Again, we've talked about this more than once. Your pens, your papers, your envelopes, your copy paper, your ink, those kind of things would all be a part of this process, right? Your fax, the overhead costs. Again, we've talked about overhead costs. This is just opening the doors. So overhead costs are my electricity, my water, rent. Those kind of things are just things that we have to pay every month, right? Because if we don't pay those, then we can't even open up the doors. All right, so when you're thinking about these purchasing orders, you got to take into consideration all those kind of things. Maintenance is a big one. Whether you're talking about maintenance with fixing things or maintenance with cleaning things up, right? Your janitorial staff. Again, do you outsource that to somebody, or do you have somebody right in your company that's part of that? Okay. And usually then when they're trying to do all this, they're going to figure this as a percentage of your overall cost. So again, you could break this all down and you could do it as minute as you possibly wanted to, or you can make it pretty general. Again, that's gonna be how your company runs, how you decide that. If you're in charge, you can do it however you want. Maybe you're just, one for all and all for one kind of guy or gal, okay? Handling the stock, this would be meaning, do I got somebody, I'm gonna hire Johnson to receive the stuff. He's gonna go through it, he's gonna see, all right, did we get what we wanted, okay? Having or finding or having places to store the stock. We kind of talked about this. Do we have our own warehouse? If we don't have our own warehouse and stuff, do we have a company that we can take it to? Okay. Do we use something like NORAM? Right? Does we have to use something like that? And then again, handling stock. As you can see here, it's figured as a cost per hour. Okay. So basically then, if you accumulate all that together, you're trying to figure out what your cost is going to be per purchase order, not what you actually purchased. So the whole purchase order as a grand total. So you would try to break this all down, and you're gonna say, all right, what did this whole process cost me to bring in those peppers? And then on top of it, we found out that the peppers weren't very good. So was that on our end or is that on their end, right? Okay. Did we not store them right? Did it happen in transit? Those are all things that could come to play, right? So cost per purchase then, this could also be if you started to kind of venture out, especially now in today's day and age where everything's a little bit more expensive. Do you go to several trucking companies and say, all right, what's your price? What are you going to charge me for it? So it could be affected a little bit by the bidding on that. It could be maybe you're just changing your overall pepper production and you want to either increase your peppers or decrease your peppers. So that might affect it, right? And then obviously the products that you're doing is going to be affected by whatever you are in, okay? So the pizza industry would have several things that you would have to, right?
Oh yeah.
Gotta have cheese, gotta have dough, gotta have all the ingredients.
Cheese is outrageous.
Right, cheese is right now, so they probably definitely make you measure out the cheese, right?
Yep.
To the by a little scoop or something, because otherwise that's gonna cost you in the long run.
We can't offer nuts on like normal Sundays now. Like it's usually like our hot fudge Sunday, like a strawberry Sunday, we like want nuts with cream and cherry. We never say we want more cream and cherry. And if they ask for nuts, we give it some.
Okay, I was about to say, I can't have nuts on my hot fudge Sunday. I was about to throw in.
You can still get them, but
Oh.
So you don't put that on, or you don't offer that up on your own?
yeah, because they're costing so much right now. Hard to get.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
What else is
interesting.
running that you should have?
When you buy your nuts, are they already crushed?
Yeah, they're just like chopped nuts.
They are.
in the container.
Where do you source your nuts from?
I don't know, Mark Rose. Mark Rose delivery.
As Mark Brothers, bring it to you guys.
So you like bros
I don't
nuts?
want to
Stop. So we'll go through what it's actually going to cost us to set up. The next thing that they talk about in this section is carrying costs. Okay, so carrying costs would be what is this going to cost us to store your nuts, right, or your peppers or whatever. The things that aren't out on the floor right now. Do you have the capability of storing that
And handle them.
and handling it? Okay. So, again, this is figured by calculating how much it would be to hold 1 unit of something for 1 year. So when you get into this part right here, that's the important part. How you're going to hold 1 unit of something for a whole year. Okay. Do you have those capabilities? Do you have to rent out a different facility? Do you have to ship it somewhere else? Okay. Notice here, a big part of this is the interest on the money you borrowed, used to buy the inventory that you have. So if you have to actually borrow the money, the interest rates on those are a big part of carrying costs, which would make sense, right? the interest that you'd have to pay back. Other things that would affect your carrying costs, obviously your insurance. Insurance would be not only for your building that you're keeping it in, but also the insurance of the actual product. So again, your peppers, probably each inventory that you bring in would have its own insurance. So you could say, if your peppers ended up being really bad, the whole thing, your insurance could cover that if you found out that it was on your end of it, right? And so, property taxes for when it's on your property. So you would figure out how much is this costing you to store it in that corner on your particular warehouse or whatever. But a portion of your property tax for each of the things that you're keeping there would affect that, all right? Storage costs again would just be, do I have my building? And then some losses if your stuff is damaged or grows old. So again, your peppers, maybe you just had to suck it up. You didn't use the peppers in time.
They came in that day.
Wow, okay. So again now, so then you look at your peppers are probably somebody else's pepper problem instead of your pepper problem. But in some of those things, you would just see that it would be, okay, we had 2 crates of peppers. Somebody bought 2 crates instead of 1 crate. And we didn't get to the second crate, so we had to throw that crate out. That's just a loss on our company. But again, that's going to cost us, right? So then, if Johnson's in charge of the pepper production, right, he probably gets to talk to, and if it happens over and over again, he's going to get the yank, right?
You get one chance.
Or he's going to get demoted, and now Carson's going to be our pepper guy. Okay? So, again, that happens all the time though, right? Unfortunately, you're going to end up being in charge of people that, they might not take the job as seriously as you do, so you have to communicate then, how you're going to take that responsibility on. And they're probably not going to like you if you demand them to do the things right, but at the same time, you gotta, what I want to say, you gotta talk, or you gotta defend yourself to the higher ups. So that's where that middleman sometimes gets caught in a lot of crap, in a sense. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Letter A, page 500, if you're not there already. So we're going back to our purchase and ordering and how much this is going to cost us. A retail chain of drugstores has 2 purchasing agents and 1 assistant who work full-time on stock orders. So we already have 3 people that are involved, right? Their annual wages together is $128,100. These employees process 15,000 orders a year. Of the total warehouse cost of $250,000 a year, 60% is charged to ordering. So their department gets charged 60% of the warehouse costs. The total office costs are $54,000 a year, which 35% is allocated to ordering. What is the average cost of each stock order? So what are we going to do here?
You're going to take the total salaries.
Okay, so we're going to take all of our salaries.
You gotta divide by 3.
Okay.
You get-
Now, do you want to divide by 3?
Or we could just, no, I don't really need to.
We don't really need to in this case, right? We're going to take our total salaries, which was $128,100, right? And then the other thing that I have to figure out is, what does this department get charged for warehouse costs? So how do I figure that?
60% times 250,000.
So take 250,000 times 6%, or 60, which ends up being 0.6%, right? Gets me what?
150,000.
150,000. So again, as you're going through this calculation, again, this should be a little bit more than half, right? And then what was the other part?
54,000 times 35.
So we got our office costs, 54,000 times how much percent?
35.
0.35,
Yes, sir.
which is
18,900.
18,900. That was a bad 8, sorry. So we're going to add up all that stuff, right? We're going to get a grand total here. 16, 6, 7, 8, 9. 297,000?
Something like that.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you divide it
Now,
by,
what do I do to that?
divide it by 15,000 because it's 15,000.
Perfect. Now I take my grand total and divide by 15,000, and we get what?
1980.
One order basically costs the company $19.80. So again, then what are you gonna think about? Well, then you're gonna think about, okay, so I gotta cover that cost, right? Now how high do I go?
Depends on how high you sell it.
Right?
Depending on what you're selling.
So then you're gonna go through and figure out what your percentage is that you actually want, right?
$49.50.
You're gonna go $49.50 or whatever. Okay. Now, obviously, does this really talk about, when we talked about these 15,000 orders, are those 15,000 orders all the same thing?
You never know.
We don't know, really, right? It doesn't really say, right? It just says 15,000 orders per year. So if Yaz got a percentage into the back of his mind for his $49.95 or whatever he said, he has to take into consideration if these 15,000 things are different things, right? Now, if they're all the same thing, then he can probably justify that this one price is $49.95 for everything. But if these 15,000 things are all different, then he might have to manipulate that a little bit. That makes sense what I'm saying there? Okay. All right, let's go down to B. Some company estimates the basic cost of processing any purchase order to be $12 per order. Each year, 125 special orders must be handled at these extra costs. 5.5 hours of staff time per order to write specifications at $43 an hour. 2.5 hours per order at $32 an hour for staff to review the bids received. What are the total and average costs of handling these special purchase orders? So what's the difference?
Well, it's out.
Okay, so if we had 5.5 hours, what do we have to take 5.5 hours times? 43. And then 2.5 hours times 32. Add those two things up and what?
And you get $316.50, and then you have to do something with the first part.
Something with the first part.
Right?
Okay, what are we gonna do with the something of the first part? 12 times.
125.
So here's the question. Is these special things extra? Okay, and so do we include the $12 of any order?
No. No, just the 125. Well, it says purchase, any purchase, so even if it's special or not.
Right, right. So you would, right? So we're gonna take our 5.5 times 43, our 2.5 times 32, but then we have to add on $12. So get your totals for those two.
Do you not take 12 times?
Nope, you don't have to take 12 times that. Okay? So our grand total was the 5.5 times, what was that one?
That was 5.5 times 43, which was $236.50.
Okay?
And then you have to take 2.5 times 32, which was $80.
Okay? And then we're gonna add in our 12.
Yeah. And then
Okay? And again, the 12 is just saying this is for one thing, basically, right? So if we add all these together, we get what? 11, 12, 328.50. Now what do we do with 328.50?
Times the 125.
Okay, now we're gonna do this. So this is my special ones. And of the special ones, we had 125 of those special ones. And so each one of the specials cost us $328.50, but we had 125 of those. So our grand total was what?
$41,062.50.
$62.50.
Yeah.
Okay, now, so that's our first answer, right? So the first question was, what are the total? That's my total. Now how do I find my average cost? Well, really, my average cost comes back to this number right here, right? So we actually found the average cost before we found the grand total. Okay. So, notice those specialty items. Now, what's good about the specialty items?
Probably costs more.
We can probably charge more, right? So, even though it costs us way more, we're probably gonna charge way more. And we probably actually make our money off those ones, right?
Better be.
Yeah, better be. Otherwise, we gotta what?
Drop.
Yeah, we probably gotta drop those specialty items.
Specialty.
Absolutely. Okay? So, jump over to C. Now we're gonna try to figure out what the cost is per holding something, okay? So, a food wholesaler's cost for a Happy House frozen vegetables is $1.05 per bag for 600,000 bags handled each year. The wholesaler pays 8% interest on 1/2 of the frozen vegetables inventory value for the year. Each year, though, 0.25% of the bags tear and must be thrown out. The cost of freezers and electricity to run the freezers is $90,000 a year. What is the carrying cost for one bag of frozen vegetables? Okay, so what the heck do we do?
We take,
How much is it for all of our bags?
take 600,000 times $1.05.
So we're gonna take 600,000 times $1.50 or $1.05, right?
Yeah.
And I believe I saw 630,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now what?
It says that the wholesaler pays 8% interest on 1/2 of the frozen vegetables.
Okay, so what do I do with this number?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2.
Times by .08.
So this was what?
315,000.
315,000. All right.
Times, you multiply it by, I'm gonna take that times 8%, you get the interest. right?
Times 8%. Perfect. Times. So what's 8%?
.08.
0.08, right? So what's 8% of that?
25,200.
25,200. Okay, perfect. Now what?
And quarter of the bags tear must be thrown out, so I don't know if that has anything.
Okay, so first off, let's talk about what is our grand total so far.
Would you
Okay.
take that? Would you take the quarter off the 600,000 in the beginning? No.
Okay, so we're talking about what now? So we had 315,000 and we got our 25,000 from that, right? Now, it says what percent?
25% of the bags tear must be thrown out.
Okay, so
We're losing that much.
how much is our grand total? Our grand total is the 630,000, right?
Yeah.
But of that 630,000, then you got your 0.25%. So when you do 0.25%, what's that though as a decimal? 0.0025, right? Right? Because the first percent was 0.25 and I still gotta move it 2 places to the left. Okay, so what are we calculating right here? The money that gets thrown away essentially. So what's 630,000 times that decimal?
1,525.
Okay. So we got 1,525 that we threw away. Oh, 75, thank you. Okay, now, what else?
The cost of the freezers and electricity is $90,000 a year.
Okay, so we're gonna have 90,000 here. What else we got? What does it ask for one thing, right?
That's one bag of frozen vegetables.
Plus your.
So we need the interest, right? Or this wasn't interest. What was this number?
Yeah, that was the interest.
Yeah, that was interest. We need the amount that we're throwing away. Okay? Do we need anything else? 25,200. 1,575 and 90,000, okay? And this gets us a grand total of 116 something, wasn't it?
116,775.
Okay, so this is how much it's going to cost us, but how much are we going to actually produce? The production again was this number, right? The 630,000. That's how much we're producing, right? So it says at the beginning, wait, what is the carrying cost for each $1 of annual, or no, I'm looking at the wrong one. What is the carrying cost for one bag of frozen vegetables? Oh wait, no, we don't need this 630, we need what? 600,000, because that's the total number of bags we have. So take your 116,000, because this is what it's gonna cost us, and then we're gonna divide that by all of the bags that we had to figure out how much it's gonna cost us for one bag. How much?
0.19.
So what's that mean? 19 cents to what?
To carry.
To carry,
Yeah,
right?
On top of there.
So for us to have that in our warehouse for 1 year, one bag of, what do they say, peas or something? Is,
Frozen vegetables.
or frozen vegetables, we don't know what peas, is 19 cents. Okay? Alright, so that one you gotta just kinda slow down and think a little bit. Do you need it, do we need to do D? It's kinda basically the same process. But do you wanna go through it? We all right? So again, a little bit more math, but just make sure that the biggest thing is with these percentages. Make sure that you always take the percent and move it 2 places to the left. Okay? So here's your assignment, and then what's tomorrow? Quiz. So realize that